July 28th.
Is traveling in the middle of a plane. You have outbreaks in many of the areas where teams are located, Miami, Phoenix, Southern California, Texas, that are out of control. This plan that baseball has come up with makes no sense.
Baseball's breakdown comes as the NFL has announced it's canceling all preseason games ahead of the 2020 season. Football, like baseball, not planning to play in a bubble.
I think if you're in a bubble, you've got a good shot of finishing the season. But if you're not in a bubble, I think this is showing us that it's going to be very difficult to finish a season, and it may be difficult to start a season.
President Trump continues to promote an unproven drug after the president's son is temporarily booted off Twitter for spreading false information, while Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube removed the content. Excessive force? Attorney General William Barr on Capitol Hill defends the use of tear gas in D.C.'s Lafayette Park as an officer with the National Guard testifies protesters were met with excessive force.
The events I witnessed at Lafayette Square on the evening of June 1st were deeply disturbing to me and fellow National Guardsmen.
Campaign 2020, America decides. Joe Biden says he'll pick his running mate next week. So who's on the short list? Deadly shark attack. A 63-year-old woman killed by a great white shark as shark sightings in New York force popular beaches to close along the coast. 2 fatal accidents prompt New York City to shut down a popular moped sharing company. Could other cities do the same? And tonight, military history. The woman now in charge of the U.S. Army Reserves, shattering a glass ceiling more than 100 years old.
This is the CBS Evening News.
Maine news tonight about the victim, the wife and mother. The warning about mystery seeds sent in the mail, federal authorities now saying, do not plant them. What are they and where are they coming from? And we're tracking a new tropical threat in the Atlantic tonight, nearing Puerto Rico, then potentially closing in on the east.
This is ABC World News Tonight.
Soon. Another promise broken, repealing the Affordable Care Act.
We will do it, and we will do it very, very quickly.
But President Trump is still trying to keep that promise. Just last month, his administration asked the Supreme Court to overturn Obamacare, but the justices have decided that they will not hear those arguments until after the election. Shannon?
The administration's coronavirus coordinator says the virus is again moving north, and she's now encouraging more states, including Virginia, to limit indoor dining and shut down bar service. Well, tonight, Major League Baseball is shutting down too, at least temporarily. The leagues, the Philadelphia Phillies and Miami Marlins, will postpone their games for several days after 4 more players for the Marlins tested positive today. At a press briefing late today, President Trump defended a video he retweeted featuring a doctor making inaccurate statements, saying that masks don't work and that there's a cure for the virus. Both are not true. That's why the country's biggest social media companies call what the video false and removed it from their platforms. Well, there's a lot of reporting to get to tonight, and our team of correspondents is standing by to cover it all. CBS is
off from Florida tonight.
Just one day after Moderna's vaccine trial started its critical final phase of human trials, new evidence the vaccine might act quickly. 7 of 8 primates injected with the vaccine showed no detectable virus in their lungs just 2 days after exposure. Dr. Anthony Fauci, hopeful about Moderna's early results.
I am cautiously optimistic that as we get into the late fall and early winter, we will have an answer, and I believe it will be positive.
On Moderna's heels, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer launching the final phase of its vaccine trial with 30,000 volunteers.
Volunteers at this point are going to be true heroes to help us determine which of these vaccines is best.
And some of those volunteers will expose themselves to the virus right here in Florida, where it's raging, the state marking its deadliest 24 hours yet. 191 lives lost. The nation's second largest teachers union saying it will support members who move to strike in areas that reopen classrooms without adequate safety measures. A new report from the White House Coronavirus Task Force obtained by the New York Times urges 21 states with outbreaks, so-called red zones, to put more restrictions in place. Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx today urging people to avoid groups.
We are still seeing significant outbreaks occurring from birthday parties, graduation parties, family reunions.
Across the country, concern after mass gatherings like this church event on a California beach and a charity concert in New York's Hamptons. The governor tweeting out this video saying he was appalled, announcing an investigation. Organizers say they followed CDC guidelines and tried to ensure social distancing. And tonight, Major League Baseball's season is in jeopardy. Now 17 Miami Marlins players and staff are infected, their season put on pause. The manager of the World Series champion Nationals admits he's nervous.
Because of my heart condition, what happens, to me if I do get it? So I got to be extra careful.
In nearby Baltimore, colleagues are mourning the loss of 56-year-old Dr. Joseph Costa, who ran the ICU at Mercy Medical, saying he had a wonderfully big heart. Doctors in Georgia spent 49 grueling days saving Michael Mullenix, who was on a ventilator for 3 weeks.
I want y'all to take this virus very seriously because it's not a joke.
His entire family of 8 contracted COVID. Michael was hit the hardest, despite not having any pre-existing conditions. Staff celebrated when he was released, but his recovery is just beginning. Back home, we witnessed rare and difficult moments. While we spoke with his mother, an occupational therapist started working with Michael.
You squeeze my finger as hard as you can.
The former high school football player, now unable to walk on his own. His voice is badly damaged from breathing tubes.
This stuff is real.
I know it's tough, but watching Michael go through that, as a mother, what's it like?
You never thought you were going to see your son, with all the tubes. I have a picture of him and his brother that I would put under my pillow, and I didn't want to close it until he got home.
A long road ahead for Michael and his family. While some numbers are improving across the Sun Belt, cases are climbing in other parts of the country. States like Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and Tennessee. Dr. Anthony Fauci warning we can't afford another surge. David?
All right, Victor, thank you.
15 million times. Here's CBS's Ben Tracy.
In a dramatic move, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube rebuked the president and his son Donald Trump Jr., accusing them of peddling false information about the virus. Twitter removed the president's retweets of several versions of this video.
We're America's frontline doctors,
in which a group of doctors make several patently false claims, including that there's a cure for the virus and nothing needs to be shut down. All at odds with the recommendations of the president's own health experts.
You don't need mask. There is a cure.
I think they're very respected doctors. There was a woman who was spectacular in her statements about it, that she's had tremendous success with it, and they took her voice up.
The video promotes hydroxychloroquine, the drug the president has touted as a potential treatment. The administration's own FDA says it does not treat COVID and can have harmful side effects.
Many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think, it's become very political. I happen to believe in it.
Social media platforms removed the video, with Facebook saying it contains false information about cures and treatments for COVID-19, a violation of its policies. Twitter temporarily suspended Donald Trump Jr.'s account for sharing the same video.
And President Trump is also once again criticizing Dr. Anthony Fauci. He retweeted a post that accuses Dr. Fauci of misleading the American people. Asked about that tonight here at the White House, the president claims he still has a good relationship with the doctor. Nora?
All right, Ben Tracy at the White House, thank you. Today, Democrats accused Attorney General Bill Barr of doing President Trump's political bidding and of a double standard by using federal agents against protesters in Portland while ignoring armed militias who took over Michigan's Capitol building earlier this year. Here's CBS's Nancy Cordes.
Since when is it okay to try to burn down a federal court?
Attorney General William Barr came loaded for bear, defending his decision to take on protesters in Portland.
They have these powerful slingshots with ball bearings that they shoot. They've used pellet guns. We believe we have found those projectiles have penetrated marshals to the bone.
Democrats argued the unidentified federal agents he deployed are only causing more tension.
He used pepper spray and truncheons on American citizens.
And they questioned his motives.
The president wants footage for his campaign ads, and you appear to be serving it up to him as ordered. In most of these cities, the protests had begun to wind down before you marched in and confronted the protesters.
We are at the courthouse defending the courthouse. We're not out looking for trouble.
Navy veteran Christopher David would tell a different story. He was protesting unarmed and was attacked.
The Inspector General is reviewing that particular
Well,
incident.
do you think he deserved to get pepper sprayed and beaten to the point of broken bones?
As I say, the Inspector General is going to review the incident.
Also defended his order to forcefully disperse a mostly peaceful crowd near the White House last month.
It's my understanding that no tear gas was used.
A National Guardsman who was on duty that day disputed that in a separate hearing.
I could feel irritation in my eyes and nose, and based off my previous exposure to tear gas and training, I recognize that irritation as effects consistent with CS or tear gas. The events I witnessed at Lafayette Square on the evening of June 1st were deeply disturbing.
Portland's mayor and its police commissioner are now requesting what they call a ceasefire, the removal of all federal forces from Portland. The attorney general said today he only sent his own people in, Nora, because the local police weren't doing their job.
Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Nancy. A new policy in Austin.
Bruce.
As President Trump spreads misinformation on the pandemic, Joe Biden today said the country can't fight the virus if they can't trust the president.
People are losing faith in what the president says. And if a president repeatedly says things to you that are not true, and then there comes a time when they say, I have something that I think can cure you, but it could really hurt you, you're not going to listen to the guy who says, been lying to you.
As coronavirus cases soar, Biden says it didn't have to be this way. So we asked, what would he be doing differently?
Are there specific states right now that you think should halt their reopenings and roll things back? And if so, which states?
The president has given us a false choice. He said that we have to get back to work and also deal with COVID. You can't get this country going again unless you get COVID under control. And so he has been really late in the game.
And to be clear, have you been tested yet?
No, I have not.
Biden says Trump is looking to change the subject by sending federal agents into the Portland protests.
This isn't about law and order. It's about a political strategy to revive a failing campaign. Every instinct Trump has is to add fuel to the fire.
The former vice president today laying out his plan to fight racial economic inequality.
In good times, communities of color still lag. In bad times, they get hit first and the hardest. And in recovery, they take the longest to bounce back. This is about justice.
And he had an announcement about a big announcement, saying he'll make public his choice for vice president next week.
I'm going to have a choice in the first week in August, and I promise I'll let you know when I do.
And that announcement will be coming next week, but Biden wouldn't say if he's been able to meet with any of the finalists in person. David?
All we know is that it will be a woman.
That are still undecided because they've been having massive problems with counting and seeing which mail-in ballots are legitimate. I mean, this is enormous. This is an enormous problem, and these are in congressional districts in New York State. Put that in a national context, in a presidential election where there's far, far more voting by mail than there ever has been before, and there could be enormous problems. We might not find out who actually won for weeks afterwards. Meanwhile, there's just terrible partisan wrangling going on, a la Bush v. Gore. So there's some really bad scenarios for voting by mail, and the Attorney General simply recognized some of those.
Yeah, when you say weeks, Byron, I think we all might have to stock up on the antacids if it comes to that, but we'll all be in it together as we cover it and it falls out. All right, panel, thank you. Stick around. President Trump, next up, takes on Dr. Fauci and gets defensive over the coronavirus.
Is the Attorney General of the United States of America. Too bad he doesn't care or realize that.
Before we lose you, because I know your time is short, there's one clip from the hearing I did want to play for your benefit. As you know, in the news, we have what people say, and we always try to get a fair response. And he did speak about your comments about law enforcement. So for your response, let's take a look at that.
The stormtrooper comments by the Speaker of the House, and we know that that is a direct reference to the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. Don't you think it encourages the violence that we're seeing and encourages the participation against the police?
I think that's possible, and I think it's irresponsible to call these federal law enforcement officers stormtroopers.
Well, actually,
The Attorney
I said
General,
they acted like... No.
Well, I'm just going to read it to you. I want everyone to hear what he said. He implied under oath that it is possible that this would be dangerous to law enforcement, and he called your remarks irresponsible, and we give you the floor.
I never heard him say anything about Rudy Giuliani when he said they were like stormtroopers when they went into Michael Cohen. Was it his home or that? Or one of his other henchmen said that the law enforcement were like the Gestapo when they went into one of the president's henchmen's place. I said they acted like stormtroopers, and they did, and my colleagues have said that as well. What is it? I'm an organizer. That's how I came into all of this, chair of the California Democratic Party. And peaceful protest is who we are and what we do. And do some other people come along and try to disrupt? Yes. But you don't send in people acting like stormtroopers into the scene and evoking even more unease and unrest. He should be answering for what he did at Lafayette Square, a disgrace. So this is, it's really, he was like a blob. He was like just a henchman for the President of the United States instead of the Attorney General of the United States of America.
Speaker Pelosi, you get the last word on that. We covered several important items. You're very...
that came out today, Sheila Jackson Lee brought this out, others brought it out, is that the Attorney General does not believe in the premise of the Black Lives Matter movement. He does not believe, as President Trump does not believe, that there is systemic racism, that police, as a general matter, treat black people worse than they treat white people. This is a core difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, between Joe Biden and between Donald Trump. And all you heard today was William Barr really representing the view that there is no systemic racism problem in the United States. And we'll see how the voters decide that question in November.
98 days to go until the election, but who's counting, right?
Senator McConnell and the leaders on their side aren't getting many public opinion baths.
To reduce the spread of coronavirus. In fact, this bill does just the opposite.
Stay safe with Safe Light.
Tonight on Futurecast that those showers and storms we see right now will be essentially fizzling out after sunset. Tomorrow morning may see a few of those spotty showers and storms just north of Eagle Butte and head toward Mobridge. A few clouds too, of course, but then otherwise looking to stay relatively quiet until around this same time tomorrow. More pop-up showers and storms, this time along and south of I-90. And as you see, most of that activity is staying to the southwest of Sioux Falls. Severe weather risk for tomorrow, generally staying well.
If I can take care of everyone who's sick out there, I would do it, you know.
And others who are terrific recommended. And he's got this high approval ratings. They're highly thought of, but nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
Well, a little bit of levity from the president there today. We're back with our panel. And Mara, I want to start with you. There's been so much about trying to pit Dr. Fauci against President Trump, and yet when confronted face to face, they each will say, we get along fine, we discuss things, we meet, everything's great, I think so much of him, and it's wonderful. And yet there is this constant attempt at driving a wedge between the two. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think that it's in neither of their interests to have a wedge driven between the two of them. Dr. Fauci is the good housekeeping seal of approval on this pandemic. And he has been all along. There have been times when the president was more interested in reopening the economy that he wasn't meeting with Fauci as much as he had been, or he wasn't having him to the briefings. But what I don't understand, and it's mystifying to me, is why does President Trump continue to retweet disparaging comments about Dr. Fauci? That I just don't understand. I don't think that it's in his interest to undermine the credibility of Dr. Fauci.
Seem to have a very complex relationship, those two. Okay, meanwhile, they're talking about on Capitol Hill putting together more relief funding. There's a fight over, these plus-ups for unemployment benefits. Today, the two...
through 2020.
I wanted to. Well, I've switched to Swiffer WetJet, and it's awesome. It's an all-in-one.
Remorse by saying, I did it, I'm sorry.
Or worsening heart failure before... Their vision.
Some weather news. The next named storm is forming, this time in the Atlantic. Tropical storm warnings are up for the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, which could be hit in the next 36 hours. From there, the storm is expected to move northwest and could threaten the Bahamas and Florida. Tonight, war games by the Iranian military are again raising tensions with the U.S. In the Persian Gulf. Iran fired missiles at a mock U.S. aircraft carrier. Iranian fast boats moved in and commandos boarded it from a helicopter. 2 U.S. airport bases in the region went on alert during the exercise. A Navy spokeswoman called Iran's behavior irresponsible and reckless. A growing number of people say they've received mysterious packets of seeds in their mailbox. The seeds, apparently from China, have turned up unsolicited in at least 45 states. The Department of Agriculture is urging people not to plant them and has begun an investigation. Coming up next, military history. Meet the woman now in charge of nearly 200,000 soldiers.
If you can't watch the CBS Evening News, you can listen. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Sponsored by U.S. Bank. Is just 80.
Major League Baseball announced just today that the Miami Marlins season will be on hold through the coming weekend. The team had been set to play 6 games during that time. The decision to postpone those games was made after 17 Marlins players and staff tested positive for COVID-19. As a precaution, 3 games remaining in the Phillies against the Yankees this week have also been postponed. Instead, the Yankees will play 2 games in Baltimore against the Orioles to create schedule flexibility a little later in the season.
Barbie is launching the first ever campaign team. The new career set includes 4 diverse dolls with roles including candidate, campaign manager, fundraiser, and voter. That line's meant to expose girls to public leadership roles and pique their interest in shaping the future. Pretty cool. Emmy Award nominations announced this morning. Netflix breaking the record for most nominations in a year with 160. HBO setting the previous record last year with 137 nominations. HBO's Watchmen earning the most nominations overall with 26, including Best Limited Series. The Emmy Awards are slated to be handed out Sunday, September 20th on ABC.
Well, speaking of television, we are celebrating the 60th anniversaries of KSFY and KDLT all this week on Dakota News Now. Join us this Friday at 6:30 on KDLT for a half-hour special where we will look back on 6 decades of memories at both stations. You can also catch the special this coming weekend on KSFY. Pretty good night to spend some time outside. Tyler Roney has one more check in the forecast when we come back right here on Dakota News Now.
Is really their health. You look at it, they've already had an injury to Rondo. Anthony Davis, got poked in his eye, even though I don't think that that's a long-term thing. But they've had that issue where they've had guys kind of go out and guys come back. And they're a little bit older of a team. You look at Danny Green, J.R. Smith, LeBron, and more.
What'd you say?
Well, there's not much to say to people with a fair amount.